Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of Blood Vessels Explained. In this video, we'll be looking at the different types of arteries and veins, and we'll be exploring how the blood moves around the body. If you haven't watched part 1, I highly recommend that you watch it, because a lot of the content we're going to cover today are based on the information that we've learned in part 1. But don't worry, I've provided a link in the description below. But for those who've already watched part 1, let's get started. Let's say this is you. And we want to get the blood from your heart and all the nutrients that it contains to these little cells in your right thumb. But how do you get that blood all the way from your heart and to your right thumb? By using blood vessels, of course, but more specifically, arteries. We know that arteries carry blood away from the heart, and in this case, that blood has to be oxygenated because that's what we're delivering to these little right thumb cells over here. Now I'm actually going to draw the entire arterial system that leads into your right arm, and I'm going to try to explain it afterwards. Obviously, these aren't all the branches that come off these arteries, but I've drawn the main ones that lead up to our destination. So our journey starts with the aorta, and you should know what this is already. It's a supermassive artery that comes directly off the heart. So the aorta. And the aorta is very, very large. It's the largest artery in the body. And many people think it's as wide as a garden hose. Okay? And as you can see, the aorta has 3 branches coming off of it. And the branch we're more interested in is this one here. And it's called the brachiocephalic trunk. The brachiocephalic trunk. The blood would then have to flow through the subclavian artery, and more specifically, the right subclavian artery. And this artery consists of this area from here all the way to here. So the right subclavian artery. You might be wondering, well, why is this the right subclavian artery if it's on my left? Well, remember that if you're in this perspective of this person here, and you're standing like he is now, this would be your right side, and this would be your left. Anyway, the right subclavian artery turns into the axillary artery. Okay, the axillary artery. And the axillary artery is this bit here. So all the way from here to approximately there. So the axillary artery. The axillary artery. And the artery that makes up your upper arm is called the brachial artery. Okay, the brachial artery. And that's from here all the way to here. So that's the brachial artery. The brachial artery. The brachial artery then enters the forearm, where it splits into 2 other arteries. And the artery that we're more interested in is called the radial artery. And this is the artery from here all the way to here. So the radial artery. And the radial artery sibling on the other side of the hand is known as the ulnar artery. Okay, the ulnar artery. You don't need to know this for this video, but I'll write it down anyway. The ulnar artery. And this little artery that comes off the radial artery, which goes into the thumb, is known as a princeps pollicis artery. Okay, the princeps pollicis artery. I just want to pause here and talk about how we can categorize these arteries into 2 different types. So the first type is made up of all the arteries from the aorta to the axillary arteries. So that's the right subclavian artery as well. So let's just draw a barrier here to show where it's from. So all these arteries are known as elastic arteries, okay? So let me just write that down. Elastic arteries. And a reason why these arteries are known as elastic arteries is because they have a protein in their walls known as elastin, okay? Let me just make up some space so we can write stuff. So they contain elastin. Elastin. To understand the effect of elastin on the arteries, we need to go back a little and into the information that we learned in part 1, where we learned that the arterial system is a very high pressure system. And in particular, the arteries that are closest to the heart are directly being affected by this high pressure because they're on the front line. So to combat the immense pressure exerted on the walls of these arteries, the blood vessels, and these particular blood vessels, contain elastin in their walls. And the elastin enables the arteries to quite literally balloon out when the pressure is exerted on them. So let me try to draw that for you. So let's say that this is an elastic artery in its normal state. Okay, it's quite narrow. And when the high pressure is exerted on its walls from the blood inside it, the artery quite literally balloons out. So it gets bigger. Like so. So if you think about this as a physicist would, you'd notice that the pressure energy caused by the blood inside the arteries is being converted into elastic energy. And this balances out those high pressures and makes sure that the arteries don't burst and cause internal bleeding. That's the elastic arteries done. Let's move our focus onto the other type of arteries, known as the muscular arteries. And as you've probably noticed, I've rubbed out the radial artery to give us a bit more space to write about muscular arteries. And the muscular arteries in this example are the brachial artery, the radial artery, and the triceps pollicis. By the time the blood from the heart reaches the muscular arteries, most of the pressure is gone. So the muscular arteries don't experience as much pressure as the elastic arteries do. This means that muscular arteries don't need elastin to support themselves. In fact, they contain muscles, and in particular, smooth muscle. Now, smooth muscle is not to be confused with skeletal muscle. Smooth muscle is a muscle that you can't control. The body controls it for you. Skeletal muscle is what you control. So if I move my hand, I'm using my arm muscles to move my hand. I'm using my skeletal muscles. I'm not using my smooth muscles. The smooth muscle in the arteries enables the arteries to constrict in a process known as vasoconstriction. So let me try to draw this for you. Imagine this is a normal muscular artery. A normal muscular artery. The smooth muscle inside the muscular artery allow the artery to vasoconstrict into a smaller one. So unlike the elastic arteries that balloon out, the muscular arteries are able to constrict or reduce their size. And the whole point of vasoconstricting is to increase resistance. So when you blow through a small straw, what you find is resistance, a very high resistance. Same is happening here with the muscular arteries. When they vasoconstrict, there's a lot of resistance. I know it might seem like a lot of information, but feel free to watch this video multiple times to be able to digest it. So let's have a quick recap. Elastic arteries are closer to the heart than muscular arteries. Elastic arteries contain elastin in their walls, while muscular arteries contain smooth muscle. Elastic arteries are capable of ballooning out when under high pressure, while muscular arteries vasoconstrict to increase resistance. In our example, the elastic arteries are the aorta, the right subclavian artery, and the axillary artery. The muscular arteries consist of the brachial artery, the ulnar artery, the radial artery, and the triceps pollicis. That's all from me today. I hope you liked my video. Please hit that like button and please subscribe. Bye for now.